And it's very difficult for people to refuse Lurch. He has such a nice way with them. Carolyn Jones, the woman who rocked Hollywood with her iconic role as Morticia Addams, kept a dark secret so well hidden it only came to light when doctors were forced to open her up on the operating table. During the peak of her dazzling career, few knew she was silently battling a private nightmare. But everything unravelled during a fateful flight. She vomited blood and was rushed into emergency surgery. What doctors discovered inside her body was nothing short of horrifying. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Everybody for all of the joys that they give us all throughout the year, but not everything in Caroline's childhood glittered. Her parents were constantly on edge, especially during the Great Depression when financial burdens weighed heavily on her father. Unable to withstand the pressure, he abandoned the family in 1934. That became a wound that never healed in Carolyn's young soul. Her mother, who already struggled with agoraphobia, now had to battle poverty while raising her daughter, making life increasingly suffocating. With no other choice, they moved in with Caroline's grandparents. The already cramped house grew stifling, and worse, she had to endure her grandfather's violent temper, sudden fits of rage that left her in a state of constant fear. On top of that, Carolyn suffered from chronic asthma, often confined to bed for weeks at a time. During those long stretches of being trapped in her own fragile body, she turned to books, music, and Hollywood magazines as her escape. The glossy pages filled with dazzling stars became her window into another world, a place of glamour, brilliance, and endless opportunity. In that dream world, she wasn't a sickly, frail girl anymore, but a radiant star on the silver screen. From that quiet yearning, she began to nurture the dream of one day becoming a true movie star. When Carolyn heard about the Pasadena Playhouse, a prestigious acting school in California, she knew it was her only gateway out of reality. Determined to pursue her dream, in 1947, at just 17 years old, she became a student there. At the Playhouse, she didn't just study acting techniques, she also experienced her first taste of love. In August 1949, Carolyn met Don Donaldson. The romance between the one 9-year-old girl and the two 7-year-old man blossomed quickly. After only a year of dating, they married in 1950. To many, it seemed like a romantic love story. But in Hollywood, it sparked whispers of doubt. Unfortunately, the marriage lasted barely a year before ending in divorce, leaving Carolyn with a scar on her heart. Still, she refused to fall apart. After 3 years of effort, Carolyn graduated with honours from Pasadena Playhouse, ready to step into the world she had always dreamed of. But Hollywood was no easy place. She soon realised that talent alone wasn't enough. In an industry obsessed with appearances, whether or not she landed a role often depended more on her looks and the rigid beauty standards of the film business than on her refined acting skills. For the sake of her career, she decided on a complete transformation. Plastic surgery, dyeing her hair blonde, training to lose her Texas accent, altering her walk and posture, and investing in fashionable clothes. This reinvention changed everything. Shortly after, a talent scout noticed Carolyn during a performance at the Players Ring Theatre. After a successful audition, she landed a 6-month contract with Paramount Studios. Caroline had officially stepped into the film industry, but the cost was steep. As much as she longed to act, she couldn't shake the frustration of knowing it was her new appearance, rather than her carefully honed craft, that ultimately opened the door. When Carolyn Jones signed her contract with Paramount, it seemed as though her path in film was finally opening up. In 1952, she made her debut in The Turning Point, a title that felt almost prophetic, as if signalling her own life's transformation. Her family was overjoyed. Her mother wept with pride, while her grandparents danced in their small living room. But the glory quickly faded. After her debut, Carolyn landed only 2 minor, unimpressive roles before Paramount ended her contract. What had seemed like a dazzling beginning soon dissolved into a disheartening silence, with Hollywood nearly forgetting her. Financial troubles hit hard. The modest pay from Paramount was nowhere near enough to cover the high cost of living in Los Angeles. Things became so difficult that her younger sister Betty had to move in with her to help shoulder the rent. To survive, Carolyn took on any role she could find, from small films to stage productions. She returned to the theatre lights at the Preston Sturgis Players Theatre, a place that not only gave her work, but also introduced a new chapter in her personal life. There, Carolyn met Aaron Spelling, a young screenwriter still finding his footing in the industry. Between them, a strange, yet undeniable connection blossomed. Both were ambitious, driven by a hunger to make their mark in entertainment. Most importantly, they shared a sense of humour that drew them closer together. To Carolyn, this wasn't just love. It was the fated meeting of two kindred souls. In 1953, fortune smiled on Carolyn once again. She was cast in House of Wax, one of the very first 3D films ever made. Her role was small, but the film became a worldwide sensation. For the first time, critics began to take notice of Carolyn, offering her words of praise. In the cutthroat world of Hollywood, her name was beginning to carve out a place of its own. Her star was rising on the horizon, and everyone believed she was on the verge of true stardom. But while her career was on the rise, her love life took a complicated turn. Carolyn was certain Aaron was the man of her life, and she waited for a proposal. Yet, Aaron, though deeply in love with her, hesitated. He believed he couldn't marry until he had a stable career and the financial means to provide a secure home. Carolyn, however, was impatient. She hated delays, hated feeling passive. So, she boldly took matters into her own hands. It was Carolyn who proposed to Aaron. In April 1953, the two officially became husband and wife. But Carolyn was never the image of a 1,950 housewife. From the very beginning, she made it clear that her career came first. To her, having children just to fulfill a woman's duty was unfair. She openly admitted she didn't want motherhood to overshadow her artistic ambitions. It was a bold, almost rebellious choice against the standards of the time. But Carolyn stood firm. Meanwhile, fortune knocked on her door again. A casting director at Columbia Pictures noticed her and believed she was perfect for a major upcoming project from here to eternity. He promised that if the audition went well, the role would be hers. To Carolyn, this wasn't just another chance. It was the golden ticket that could place her among Hollywood's true stars. But cruel fate turned its back on her once again. On the night before the crucial audition, Carolyn was struck by a raging fever from pneumonia. Her temperature soared past 104 degrees, and she was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The dream role, one she believed would secure her stardom, slipped away and went to Donna Reed instead. Ironically, that very role won Reed the Academy Award. For Carolyn, it was like having her future stolen right before her eyes. She was haunted by the question, if I had been healthy that day, how different would my life be? The disappointment plunged Carolyn into a deep crisis. She feared her moment to shine had vanished forever. The jobs that followed were far from prestigious bit parts, supporting roles that kept her name hidden in the shadows. But then a spark of luck appeared in the unlikeliest place. In the bachelor party, Carolyn made a daring choice. She chopped off her long hair, dyed it dark, and reinvented herself with a completely new image. Her screen time lasted only 8 minutes. Yet every second was electrifying. Critics showered her with praise. Journalists rushed to interview her. And something no one expected happened. Carolyn was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. It was a tremendous joy, but one laced with bitterness. On the night of the Oscars, Carolyn sat in nervous anticipation, waiting to hear her name. Instead, the victory went to Moshi Umechi. Carolyn left the theatre under the glittering lights, carrying the honour of recognition, but no trophy in hand. Still, that night carved a new determination deep within her. She would not stop until she proved herself to be an artist truly worthy of greatness. The next opportunity came in 1958, when Carolyn was cast alongside Elvis Presley in King Creole, the last film of the King of Rock and Roll before he entered the army. Ironically, at that very time, Carolyn was struck with a fever of 1002 degrees F. Fearing she might pass her illness on to Elvis, she asked to forego the kissing scene. Elvis joked, "That's fine. Maybe this way I'll get out of military service." His half-serious remark sent the entire crew into laughter. Fortunately, the film was a massive success, marking another milestone in Carolyn's bumpy journey. Despite her growing fame, Carolyn remained typecast in eccentric supporting roles. When offered the script for Career, she firmly demanded the romantic lead, leaving the quirky sidekick role to Shirley Milan. Carolyn wanted to prove she could be a true leading lady, not just decoration beside the main characters, but life rarely follows the script. The film turned out to be a box office failure, though many critics praised it as Caroline's most nuanced and profound performance. For her, it was an artistic triumph, but a commercial disappointment, a paradox all too familiar in Hollywood. Behind the scenes, Carolyn began to immerse herself in the glamorous lifestyle of the Hollywood elite. She and Aaron Spelling, by then a well-known screenwriter, built a lavish 13-room mansion, filling her closets with furs and jewels. To the public, Carolyn maintained the image of a radiant star. But in truth, major scripts grew scarce, and the press mentioned her name less and less. Meanwhile, Aaron's career soared unexpectedly. He was emerging as one of television's most promising writers. The imbalance became painfully clear. From once being the centre of attention, Carolyn gradually turned into a shadow beside her husband. Worse still, Aaron developed suspicious habits, frequently away at night with the vague excuses. Bit by bit, trust eroded, and by August 1964, their more than decadal-long marriage ended in divorce. At only 34, Carolyn seemed to be watching every part of her life collapse. But she had no idea she was about to step into the greatest role of her career. Until then, Carolyn had repeatedly turned down television offers, clinging to her dream of being a film star. Yet, an irresistible proposal for a daytime TV role made her reconsider. The character was eccentric, dark, and laced with humour, almost as if it had been tailor-made for Carolyn. It was a choice she didn't have to think twice about, and it became the defining role of her destiny. In 1964, Carolyn officially joined the cast of The Addams Family in the role that would define her career, Morticia Addams. Yet, the show stirred controversy. When The Addams Family first premiered on September 18th, 1964, many viewers were shocked by the sizzling on-screen chemistry between Carolyn's Morticia and her husband Gomez. Their bold displays of affection scandalised conservative audiences, but the chatter about their on-screen romance was nothing compared to Caroline's real torment. The infamous Morticia dress, though glamorous on camera, the gown was pure torture. It was so tight that Caroline could barely walk, and removing it after filming took up to 20 minutes. Eventually, the costume designers added Velcro down the back so it could be taken off more easily, allowing her to move between scenes. While this wasn't the glamorous film career Caroline had once dreamed of, the show gave her the spotlight she had long craved. The Addams Family quickly became a pop culture phenomenon. At 35, Carolyn skyrocketed to A-list stardom with millions of devoted fans. It was the dream come true, and Carolyn cherished every moment of it. But the dream came crashing down. Despite the show's popularity, ABC canned The Addams Family after only 2 seasons. Carolyn was devastated. Afterwards, she took a handful of guest roles on television over the next year, but new opportunities remained scarce. Carolyn suspected she had become so closely tied to Morticia that audiences could no longer accept her in any other role. Her career declined sharply, leaving her with no clear path forward. With few options left, Carolyn returned to the stage, taking a role in The Homecoming on Broadway. But she hated every minute of it, feeling washed up and bitter. Seeking comfort, Carolyn turned to her friend and vocal coach Herbert Green. Their relationship gradually deepened into romance, and they married in December 1968. But many of Carolyn's friends disapproved of the marriage. They found Green odd, unfriendly, even unpleasant. He persuaded Carolyn to give up acting altogether and move with him to Palm Springs. From then on, Carolyn lived in isolation, her once brilliant life growing dim and shadowed. After 7 years of living in isolation in Palm Springs, Carolyn Jones finally realised she could not live without the stage lights. At 46, when many believed her career was over, Carolyn once again chose a fresh start. She boldly ended her suffocating marriage to Herbert Green and returned to Los Angeles, the place where her dreams had once blossomed. Few thought the public would still remember her, but thankfully, the audience's love for Carolyn had not faded. She began appearing again in guest roles on television, took part in stage productions, and slowly rediscovered her pride, the feeling of being an artist, of giving herself fully to her craft. It was the stage that brought Carolyn a new love. During rehearsals, she met Peter Bailey Britton, a passionate colleague full of energy. Their relationship blossomed naturally, giving Carolyn hope that she could finally find lasting happiness after so much loss. But fate did not allow her much time. On a flight from Dallas to Los Angeles, Carolyn suddenly fell gravely ill, vomiting blood violently in the airplane restroom. Upon landing, she was rushed straight to the hospital, where doctors were forced to remove most of her stomach to save her life. The test results were devastating. Advanced colon cancer. At 51, instead of seeking public sympathy, Carolyn chose secrecy. She quietly endured surgeries and exhausting rounds of chemotherapy, refusing to become an object of pity. When her condition temporarily improved, she made a powerful return to the screen in the soap opera capital. For Carolyn, acting was more than a profession. It was her very reason to live. She once said, "Until my last breath, I still want to be an actress." But hope soon dimmed when doctors confirmed that the cancer had returned. Even then, Carolyn would not surrender. She continued to appear in Capitol, even when her body was so weak she had to sit in a wheelchair to finish her scenes. Behind the makeup, beneath the lace cap and ribbon that hid her hair lost to chemotherapy, she still carried the proud aura of a true star. In September 1982, Carolyn and Peter held a simple yet deeply emotional wedding. She wanted to look radiant on her big day, and with all the strength she could muster, Carolyn appeared as a glowing bride, defying the pain that ravaged her body. It was a moment that affirmed both love and the pride of a woman who had once captivated millions. Yet less than a year later, in July 1983, Carolyn fell into a coma at her home in West Hollywood. She took her final breath on August 3rd, 1983, at just 53 years old. Before passing, Carolyn had prepared her last wishes to donate Morticia's costume and wig to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences as a testament to her iconic role. Her widower Peter also entrusted the original The Addams Family scripts to UCLA. In this way, Morticia Addams and Carolyn Jones herself live on in the memory of the public as enduring symbols of mysterious beauty, talent, and unyielding strength in the face of fate.